The blue checkmark appeared 18 months before anyone in Marlow verified the Academy record behind it. No prior disqualifying conduct. Chief Owen Markham signed beneath the box in blue ink. The packet described Blake Tully's departure from the Texas Regional Peace Officer Academy as a voluntary withdrawal caused by training incompatibility. It did not include the instructor's force report. It did not include the hospital transport form. It did not include the line that said rehire was not recommended. General Elijah Stanton knew none of that. He was standing in the private garage behind his quarters at Fort Halstead, one hand holding a carburetor gasket, the other closing a shallow metal toolbox, waiting for the engine of his restored burgundy pickup to cool. The truck was registered to him. The insurance was active. The civilian plate was valid. A defense liaison desk could confirm the military affiliation attached to the record. For 3 quiet seconds, that should have been the whole story. Stanton wore a faded navy t-shirt, worn jeans and leather boots. The gray at his temples was closely cut. Nothing on his clothing identified him as the 4-star commander of the installation several miles behind him. He preferred it that way. At the North Gate, Major Aaron Maddox reminded him to keep his secure watch on. "Command policy," she said. "I'm buying a gasket, Major." Command policy still applies at an auto parts counter. Stanton fastened the watch and drove toward Marlow. Officer Blake Tully was parked beside a closed feed store on State Highway 46. Sergeant Martin Calder sat in the passenger seat, with a paper cup balanced between his knees. A white contractor passed them, pulling a flatbed trailer. One rear marker light was dark. Calder glanced at it. "We can mention it if we see him coming back." Tully did not move. 3 minutes later, Stanton's pickup passed at 55 miles an hour. Tully sat forward. "Restored truck. Base route. Driver doesn't fit the vehicle." Calder looked through the windshield. "You saw him for half a second." "I saw enough." "What violation?" "Tint. The factory glass was legal." Tully pulled onto the highway anyway. Stanton saw the cruiser approach in his mirror. He held his speed. When the lights activated, he signaled, moved onto the shoulder, and stopped beneath an old utility pole. He turned off the engine. Both hands went to the steering wheel. Tully approached and pressed his thumb against the left taillight before reaching the window. "License, registration, and insurance." "My wallet is in my back pocket," Stanton said. "The registration is in the glove compartment. My military identification is in the silver holder on the dashboard." Tully looked at the holder. "Do not reach for that." Stanton removed his wallet slowly and handed over his civilian license. Tully read the name. "Elijah? Whose truck is this?" "Mine." "The registration will confirm it." Tully looked over the restored paint, then at Stanton's shirt. "Who paid for the work?" "I did." "Cash?" "Some of it." "What are you transporting?" "A replacement gasket." Tully held the license between 2 fingers. "Your familiarity with the process is raising concern." Stanton kept his hands visible. "What traffic violation are you investigating?" "I'm still determining that." Tully returned to the cruiser. The plate response appeared almost immediately. "Vehicle valid. Registered owner. Elijah Stanton. Defense affiliation. Verification required through Defense Liaison Desk." A telephone number appeared beneath the instruction. The final line was explicit. "Do not infer stolen or fraudulent status from restricted return." Calder read it twice. "Call the liaison desk." Tully stared at the screen. "He has a military card sitting on the dashboard before we ask for one. That feels prepared. It feels like the return matches. It does not resolve why the system is restricted. The screen tells you how to resolve it." Tully opened the incident menu. Calder watched him select. "Suspected cloned federal credential." That is not what the return says. It is what the return does not explain. Tully stepped out again. This time, his right hand rested on the taser grip. "Exit the vehicle." Stanton looked at the silver identification holder. "You have a direct verification number on your screen. Exit now." "I have an old injury in my left knee. I will turn slowly and place my right foot down first." Tully drew the taser and held it low. Stanton opened the door. He rotated carefully. His right boot touched the pavement. His left leg followed. Before he stood fully upright, Tully seized his shoulder and drove him against the truck. Calder opened his door. "Blake, slow down." Tully pulled Stanton's arms behind him. The cuffs closed hard around both wrists. Stanton did not pull away. "The restraints are too tight," he said. "I am not resisting." Tully raised the cuff chain. "Stop controlling the contact." With his hands behind his back, Stanton's right index finger reached the edge of the secure watch. "Press. Press. Hold." A small vibration confirmed the transmission. "Priority command alert. Location attached." Open audio active. Stanton spoke clearly toward the hot pavement. This is Elijah Stanton. I am being detained on State Highway 46, south of Marlow. The officer has declined the listed verification source. Restraints have been applied. I require civilian supervisory assistance. Tully gave a short laugh. You expect me to believe you are a general? Calder looked through the open truck door. The silver military identification card remained on the dashboard. The liaison number remained on the cruiser screen. Tully keyed his radio. Driver refused identification and became non-compliant during a suspected federal credential fraud investigation. The priority alert reached Fort Halstead operations before Tully finished his radio transmission. Major Aaron Maddox heard highway traffic, the movement of the cuff chain and Stanton's voice identifying the location. A watch officer reached for the quick reaction protocol. Hold that, Maddox said. The commanding general is under duress. He is on a civilian highway. She opened the defense liaison channel instead. County Dispatch received the first call. State Highway Patrol received the second. The third carried Stanton's identification data, the watch timestamp, and the location pin. Maddox locked the audio file as read-only. No military convoy left the gate. On State Highway 46, Sergeant Martin Calder stared at the silver card on the dashboard. Blake, call the number. Tully kept one hand on Stanton's cuff chain. He is already detained. That does not answer the return. Tully turned toward him. You want to take responsibility if the credential is false? Calder looked at the cruiser terminal. The instruction remained visible. Defense Liaison Desk. He had seniority. He had a radio. He did not use either one. Instead, he entered a private supervisor assist code after Stanton was already cuffed. The State Patrol unit arrived 7 minutes later. Lieutenant Nora Ellis stepped from the cruiser with a body camera already recording. She looked first at Stanton's wrists, then at the open truck door, then at the screen inside the Marlow cruiser. Who selected suspected clone credential? I did, Tully said. What verification source did you use? The return was restricted. That is not what I asked. Tully pointed towards Stanton. He was delaying exit and attempting to control the contact. Ellis read the instruction on the screen. She called the listed number from her own radio. The Defense Liaison Desk confirmed Elijah Stanton's identity, vehicle registration, and active command status. Ellis ended the call. She did not salute. She did not address him by rank. She requested a roadside medic and told Calder to preserve both body camera files. Tully reached for his handcuff key. Stanton moved one step away. Document the cuff position before he touches them again. Ellis photographed the ratchet depth and measured the space between metal and skin with a disposable restraint gauge. The medic recorded compression marks. A small break in the skin and strain in Stanton's left knee. No injury supported Tully's claim of active resistance. Ellis removed the cuffs. Chief Owen Markham arrived while the medic was packing the gauge. He asked to speak with Stanton away from the cameras. Stanton declined. Markham called the stop a verification failure involving a young officer and an unusual database return. The database provided a verification source. Stanton said, Your officer chose a fraud label instead. We can handle that through internal review. I am requesting preservation of the terminal audit, dispatch audio, body camera files, hiring records, and training records. Markham's eyes shifted at the last two items. This incident concerns a traffic stop. It concerns the person your department authorized to conduct it. Investigator Lena Wallace received the external referral that afternoon. She began with the stop timeline. Legaltint. Valid plate. Owner match. Défense liaison instruction. Fraud modifier selected. No liaison call. Exit order. Physical restraint. Distress à l'air. Calder's supervisor code came afterward. Tully's initial report said Stanton had refused federal identification and resisted physical control. The body camera showed the silver card being identified before the exit order. It showed Stanton describing his knee injury. It showed his hands remaining visible. Wallace requested Tully's hiring packet directly from Marlow. A blue checkmark appeared beside. No prior disqualifying conduct. Chief Markham's signature sat beneath it. The attached Academy summary described a voluntary withdrawal. Wallace then requested the record directly from the Texas Regional Peace Officer Academy. That file carried a red source stamp. Involuntary removal. Use of force disqualification. Rehire not recommended. The packet included an instructor report and a hospital transport form for Aaron Miles, a black cadet injured after Tully continued a simulated restraint after the instructor called stop. Marlow's packet contained none of it. An archived email showed the hiring coordinator had asked Markham whether to request the full Academy file. His reply was 6 words. Applicant copy is sufficient for vacancy. Wallace interviewed Calder next. He said he had tried to stop Tully. She placed the timestamps between them. You read the liaison instruction before the exit order. Yes. You had authority to countermand him. Yes. You waited until after the cuffs. Calder looked at the printed timeline. I was close to retirement. A formal intervention would have opened every stop we worked together. So you protected the record you hoped to leave with. Calder did not answer. Chief Markham submitted retirement papers 2 days before the standards hearing. Director Helen Mercer accepted the payroll notice and kept the misconduct review open. The lateral hire packet and the academy file were sealed together for the hearing. By then, the question was no longer why Blake Tully failed to recognize a general. It was why 3 institutions had seen enough to stop him and kept passing the warning forward under softer names. The State Peace Officer Standards Commission opened with 2 files on the evidence table. The first was Marlowe's lateral hire packet. The second came directly from the Texas Regional Peace Officer Academy. Director Helen Mercer asked investigator Lena Wallace to begin with the traffic stop. Wallace displayed the cruiser audit. Legal tint. Valid plate. Registered owner. Elijah Stanton. Defense affiliation. A direct telephone number for verification. Beneath it was the modifier Blake Tully had selected. Suspected cloned federal credential. Mercer looked toward Tully. What information supported that selection? The return was restricted. The screen warned against treating the restriction as fraud. I had to control an uncertain situation. Wallace played the body camera recording. Stanton identified the silver military card before Tully ordered him out. He described his injured knee before moving. His hands remained visible. The video showed no strike, pull, or attempt to leave. Then came the sound of the cuffs closing. Wallace placed the watch transcript beside the body camera timeline. Stanton's distress alert began after the restraints were applied. Sergeant Martin Calder's supervisor assist code came later. Mercer turned to Calder. You read the liaison instruction before Officer Tully returned to the truck. Yes. You understood that the vehicle was valid. Yes. You had authority to stop the detention. Calder rested both hands on the witness table. Yes. What prevented you? Calder looked at the printed timestamps. I was thinking about my retirement review. Mercer entered a sustained failure to intervene finding. Calder received an unpaid suspension. He lost senior patrol authority and field training eligibility. Every stop he had signed with Tully was placed into risk review. His cooperation was recorded. So was the delay. Wallace opened the hiring packet. Marlowe's document carried a blue checkmark beside the words. No prior disqualifying conduct. Chief Owen Markham's signature appeared below it. The Academy file carried a red direct source stamp. Involuntary removal. Use of force disqualification. Rehire not recommended. The instructor report described a simulated traffic stop involving Cadet Aaron Miles. The instructor had called for the exercise to stop. Tully continued applying force. Miles was transported to a hospital with a fractured bone near his eye. Markham said the applicant had presented a voluntary withdrawal letter. Mercer lifted the archived email. The hiring coordinator had asked whether to obtain the complete Academy record. Markham's reply was 6 words. Applicant copy is sufficient for vacancy. You did not receive a clean record, Mercer said. You chose not to request the record that could contradict the clean one. Markham cited staffing shortages and budget pressure. Mercer placed his retirement notice beside the packet. Payroll may process this. The hiring finding remains open. The commission sustained findings against Tully for unlawful detention, excessive restraint, false reporting, and misuse of restricted record information. His state license was suspended before the hearing adjourned. A commission clerk entered the order into the statewide registry. Tully's patrol credential changed from active to suspended. His evidence system access and vehicle stop authority were disabled. Marlowe terminated him for cause. He submitted a resignation letter that afternoon. The department rejected it as an attempt to replace the termination entry with a voluntary separation. The termination remained. 3 weeks later, after an independent review of the body camera file, watch audio and cruiser audit, a county grand jury indicted Tully for official oppression, unlawful restraint, and falsifying a government record. The federal civil rights referral remained open. Markham lost hiring and personnel sign-off authority. The commission sustained a separate finding that he had certified a background investigation without obtaining the direct source record required by state guidance. His retirement did not remove that finding from the public licensing file. The town placed its personnel office under an external monitor. Marlowe could not make another lateral hire until every background investigator completed direct source certification training. Aaron Miles's academy record was corrected. The phrase training incompatibility was removed. The new entry stated that his departure followed an injury caused by another cadet's misconduct. The Academy reopened his medical claim. The State Compensation Board approved reimbursement for treatment costs and ordered a separate hearing on lost wages. Miles received a certified copy of the corrected record. For the first time, the document described what had happened without protecting the person who caused it. The state issued a new hiring rule. Academies had to send separation records directly to hiring agencies. Force-related removals could not be converted into neutral exit codes. Every lateral hire packet required 2 signatures, one from Human Resources and one from Command. Both signers had to certify that they had read the direct source record. A restricted federal return also received a system lock. An officer could not add a fraud modifier until the listed verification source had been contacted or a supervisor documented why the call could not be completed. The first quarterly audit found 4 incomplete lateral hire packets. All 4 were returned before badges were issued. One involved an applicant carrying a neutral academy letter. The direct source file showed a force-related removal. The application stopped there. At Fort Halstead, Stanton returned to the garage in the faded navy shirt. The burgundy pickup stood beneath one work light. He placed a new gasket into the carburetor housing, tightened the 2 screws evenly, and switched off the garage light. This is a fictional story about evidence, accountability, and institutional reform.